Lake Effect brings you conversations about what's happening in Milwaukee and the people, places, and organizations that shape the community. This is Lake Effect Spotlight from WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR.
Actor Rainn Wilson is coming to Milwaukee for a celebration of his beloved character, Dwight Schrute from The Office. The show at the Riverside Theatre will include a screening of an Office episode, a Dwight Schrute lookalike contest, and a conversation with the man himself. Ahead of that, Wilson joins Lake Effect's Joy Powers to talk about his relationship with The Office, his faith, and his love of Dungeons & Dragons.
You are actually pretty famous in our office because there is a photo of you behind the former host's desk. I don't know if you remember taking that. Our former host, Mitch Tyke, had apparently interviewed you, and you offered to take a photo at his desk. Is that a common thing for you?
That is not a common thing for me. I'm sure he's an outstanding human being. I have no memory of that whatsoever, but I vaguely remember that there's a show called Lake Effect, and I can't remember what it was that I was promoting. Maybe it was the book. Maybe it was the Bassoon King book from like 7 or 8 years ago. Does that sound right?
That sounds right. We love a book.
You like a nice book. I do too.
Yeah, public radio. Yeah. We're very into books.
Nice. The people who still read and listen to the radio. These are my people.
Now tell us a bit, what's bringing you back to town?
Well, I'm coming to the great city of Milwaukee on Friday night, the 15th, to do a screening of an episode of The Office. It's an evening with Rainn Wilson, a celebration of Dwight Schrute, a screening of The Office at the Riverside Theatre, and I'm very excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Very nice. The ubiquity of The Office has to be a little surreal. It really puts you into this very interesting echelon of fame. I think a lot of people would assume that you'd be sick of hearing about The Office. You'd want to do anything aside from The Office. But you're coming to town really to sit inside of that space, to just be surrounded by The Office, be surrounded by Office fans. What is it that keeps you coming back?
Well, it's funny you say that. There's a dance between, oh my gosh, will people ever know me as an actor in another sense? I played dozens of roles in theater and TV and film before Dwight. I played dozens of roles in theater, TV, and film since Dwight. But at the same time, I love being part of one of the greatest TV shows of all time. And there's a lot of fans, and I love having fan experiences. I was just at an Office convention in New Jersey. Thousands of people showed up to meet Office cast, see episodes, kind of interactive trivia games and whatnot. And it was so much fun. So, I love both of those things. I hope that people get to know Rainn Wilson a little bit more of what I'm doing as an actor, as a writer, as a podcaster. But at the same time, I'm super grateful for the role of Dwight. I mean, it's made me money. It bought me a house. It's opened up so many doors to me. I'll always be forever grateful.
When you meet people, out in the wild, how do you find they respond to you? Because I would guess that people feel like they know you.
Yeah, they always say that movie stars people don't approach because they're kind of larger than life. Like if you saw Leonardo DiCaprio, you're not going to go up and like high five him. You're going to kind of stand back a little bit. But TV stars have been in your living room. And so you feel like they're a member of the family. And I think there's a truth to that. And nowadays, a lot of people are watching The Office on their iPads, their laptops, their phones even. So there is a deeply personal relationship with the characters. But beyond that, this show, unlike some other comedies, I mean, there's other great comedies. Let's take 30 Rock. I don't mean to diss 30 Rock. It's a great TV comedy. But I don't think that people have the kind of interpersonal, emotional relationship with 30 Rock the way that they do with The Office. There's something about The Office that people feel like they're part of the Dunder Mifflin family. And the show has gotten people through some really tough times. And they're connected on a heart level to our show in a really unique way.
Now, as part of your show, you in fact are encouraging people to dress up like you, essentially. They're dressing up as Dwight Schrute. What is it like being surrounded by a group of people attempting to look like you? That must be very odd.
Yes, you are going to see me on stage with about 30 or 40 other Dwight Schrutes, and it's going to kind of blow your mind if you're able to come to the Riverside Theatre. Yeah, it's pretty incredible, and some of them are quite young. It's always interesting to see like the 8-year-old that spent all week putting the costume together, and some of them are quite convincing. So it's amazing.
So don't be fooled.
But don't be fooled.
So I crowdsourced for questions among people I know, and one of the big things people were really interested in knowing about you is your relationship with your faith, your relationship to your Bahá'í faith. As you may know, the Milwaukee area has quite a number of Bahá'í folks. We're not that far from the temple down in Illinois. How do you feel your faith helps you navigate the world?
Wow, that's a great and deep and probing question. And here I am on NPR. Yay! Yeah, so my faith journey is a really important part of my human journey and my human story. I was raised a member of the Baha'i faith by kind of bohemian parents, and I left it for a super long time. And kind of my journey back to faith, I chronicle in one of my books, The Bassoon King, that's kind of a comedic memoir of my life. And for me, my faith is just interwoven with who I am. Which might sound strange coming from a guy who's been on a sitcom, who's best known as a sitcom actor. But it's helped me through a lot of mental health struggles. It helps me kind of focus who I am and why I'm alive. Why do I have consciousness? And it helps me also focus on service to others and trying to make the world a better place and create unity. So it's been a real rudder for me to lean on over my adult life.
We're living in a really interesting moment, I think. Regardless of your beliefs about the world, I think anybody looking at what's happening around us will say, well, it's certainly interesting. Do you find yourself leaning on your faith in ways you may not have expected or have done before?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we talk a lot about on the Soul Boom podcast is kind of what we call spiritual tools for modern living. The mental health crisis is so catastrophic for young people these days. And I guess I never really saw that connection between someone's spiritual life and practice and anxiety and depression and loneliness. But for me, and I think an increasing amount of young people are finding kind of spiritual tools to get by in the modern world. That's not something I would have necessarily been thinking about 20 years ago.
You will be returning to Wisconsin very soon. I'm from a small town in Wisconsin, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which oddly has a relationship to your life, I learned, because you played Dungeons and Dragons, which my neighbor growing up created. Gary Gygax, a long time ago in Lake Geneva, created Dungeons and Dragons. I'm curious to know what your relationship with the game is, because it feels like such a... I don't want to say it's a kind of a spiritual game, but it is a very much of a journey game, which I think is interesting.
Well, first of all, this is my favorite question of all time. Thank you very much for that. I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons. And in fact, my other Wisconsin connection is my mom was born in Wyowego, Wisconsin. It's a town so small, most Wisconsiners don't know anything about it. But I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons. I played it from age 11 through 16. I've come back as an adult several times and played it. I would love to play it more, but I don't really like playing it online so much. I'd like to play it in person, and it's hard to find people to play with. Doesn't that sound sad? But yeah, Gary Gygax was he was our hero, man. He's the original, he's the original George R. Martin, the world builder. It was the legend of the Monster Manual and the Dungeon Master's Guide back in the 70s. I practically memorized those books, those tomes. So thanks for bringing it up. And I've also talked about on the podcast, you can find it, and in Soul Boom, the book that the podcast is based on, which is about why we need a spiritual revolution, about how Dungeons and Dragons is the answer to the modern mental health epidemic. First of all, you're together with people in a room. You have a common sense of purpose. You're helping each other out. You're using your imagination. And all of those things together kind of create this incredible social milieu that people thrive in.
I think Gary would love to hear all of that if you were still with us, I'm sure. If Gail is listening, she'll be very touched by that.
When he passed away, I wrote a in memoriam for him for some magazine, I think for Entertainment Weekly or some magazine like that. I can't remember.
He was a very interesting man. I knew him most of my life. We spent most holidays with the Gygaxes, and we for long periods we would have Sunday dinner with them.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Dungeons and Dragons, although I have never actually played it, it had a huge impact on Lake Geneva. So many of the people worked at the company. So it's interesting to hear how it's affected people's lives in so many different ways.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I love the Wisconsin connection. I never really put that together. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Wisconsin, you are returning to Milwaukee. Is there anything you're looking forward to seeing in the city?
I am looking forward to seeing the Statue of the Fawns. No, I don't know. I love Milwaukee. It's kind of one of the few last just kind of great American cities. I've always loved it there in the spirit of the people. Wisconsin, these are my people, as evidenced by my mom, Patricia Whitman from Waiwega.
That's where they make the cheese, right? The cheese curds, Waiwega?
I don't know what they do in Waiwega. I don't think it's big enough for them to make anything there.
Fair enough. Well, Rainn, thank you so much for joining us here on Lake Effect.
Thanks for having me.
Rainn Wilson is a podcaster, writer, and actor best known for his role as Dwight Schrute on The Office. Wilson spoke with Lake Effect's Joy Powers ahead of his show at the Riverside Theatre this Friday.
You can find more interviews like this one by visiting wuwm.com/Lake Effect. And while you're there, subscribe to the Lake Effect Spotlight podcast.